My name is Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and today we're going to be harvesting bananas, and we're also going to be harvesting the underlying pups, as I've got just way too many. And we're going to talk about a lot of other helpful tips as we typically do in informative videos. Just to share with you quickly, right behind me are a few varieties of bananas. To my left over here is the Manzano, also known as the apple variety of bananas. The smaller one in the middle is the GoldFinger variety of bananas, and then the one that's fruiting and we're going to harvest right now and then work on thinning out the pups is to my right, and you can see those that huge bunch of bananas right behind me. So let's get to harvesting first. Follow me. So here we are now, just underneath the ice cream variety of banana, also known as the blue Java. Take a look at that bunch of bananas right there. When harvesting your bananas, you typically want to remove it from the parent plant, or if it's accessible, maybe just take those bananas that are ripe and enjoy them all just ripe off the vine. But I was fortunate enough to borrow this ladder, and again, this is a precarious position to be in. I'm just taking the entire bunch down and allowing the rest to ripen in a nice, dry, and cool area, which is going to be right underneath my gazebo, which we'll be doing hopefully momentarily. But unlike last year when we harvested our ice cream bananas, they were a lot lower. As I work my way, and I've attached this ladder to the tree, or to the banana plant behind me, but as I approach the near height, you can see that the banana is still way higher. I would guess that we're about somewhere between 18 to 22 feet up in the air right here with where these bananas are. So it's reached a record height here in the garden. And we got to find a way to get these down. So I'm going to work on doing that right now. Check out the beautiful blooms of the ice cream banana and what it looked like as this one bloomed this year in the month of August. Another important point to share with you is that on average, it'll tell you from bloom to ripe bananas is on average 90 days. But here we are from that first week of August when this bloomed through August, September, October, November, December, January, and here we are now, that first week of February. It took just about 7 months to enjoy these bananas. So the factor in what's different about the research that says 90 days and what's actually happening here in my Los Angeles garden is that there's microclimates, and this section of my garden that's on this line and behind me is one of the shadiest and one of the coolest parts of my garden. Had I planted it about another 5 or 10 feet to my right or heading in the north direction, it would have received the additional light and the additional warm temperatures that would have shortened the ripening period. Well, check out these flowers now. So I've just cut at this height over here, starting to crack. I'm going to try to catch the fall here. Here it goes. Here it goes, here it goes, here it goes. If you come in a little closer, you'll see that it really missed the ground by less than an inch. Check this out over here. If I can just sway it, look at that. It's literally less than an inch away from the ground. It didn't hit. It's I hope you guys can come up with a better way to harvesting these tall bananas. And again, my gardening practices where the trees are all about 8 to 10 feet apart, it was a true challenge. So let's see how many pounds of bananas we got here. Let's reset the scale. Here we go. 258 pounds. I weigh 200, so we got 58 pounds of bananas. Last year was a little over 60, so we're very happy with this. Consistently, we can say it's about 60 pounds a year, give or take, let's say a couple of pounds. Let's go suspend these now. So here we are, we just added some twine around the top of the banana cluster. I then wrapped it on the top of the gazebo. We've done this again last year without a problem. My wife said it's just way too heavy. It's gonna cause some damage, but I know that this structure can handle it. So here we go. So here we are, we've just suspended the entire bunch of ice cream bananas so that we're gonna harvest all of the yellow ones as they become ripe. The green ones will continue to ripen in this position, and we'll be enjoying bananas for the next couple of weeks. All of these surplus will be peeled and frozen, and we'll get to enjoy those at our leisure as well. One thing you may have noticed so far, but coming a little closer, this year we've noticed that many of the bananas are splitting. Forget about the ones that are ripe and yellow, but come down a little deeper and you can see that some of them that are still green are splitting. And I noticed that while they're on the vine. And for those of you that don't live in Los Angeles might not be aware of this, but I think everybody in the country knows about the Los Angeles fires and the fact that we had record fires this year, all attributed to those Santa Ana winds. Santa Ana winds are devastating on crops too. And what the winds do is, just like many of us in the winter, we get cracked hands, myself included. Your fruit are undergoing the same thing. When that cold, chill, and especially winds pass by the fruit, it's drying its skins, and it's that imbalance between the moisture in the skin, the banana peels, and the moisture that it's trying to create through, pulling water from the earth and basically hydrating itself. It's that imbalance that leads to the cracking. It's the #1 reason that causes splitting in bananas, but also in citrus and other fruits as well. Well, let's get to the next steps. Follow me. So the next step is we're going to recycle the entire parent plant. The parent plant is the plant that was supporting the fruit. And you can see we've pretty much beheaded the top, and now whatever is left over here, in addition to the entire parent stem, is coming down. The reason, and a lot of you have asked, is there any way that parent plant can create more bananas next year? And let's see what Kevin Chang of the Bare Root Nation has had to say about this point. Check this one out. That's great. The other thing too that I get a question from some users, and I'd love to get your feedback, I respond to these periodically throughout each month, is when the banana basically fruits, and if you harvest the fruit, can that same banana parent plant that produced the fruit, can it stay and produce another flower and create some more fruit?
It cannot. So once the mother plant has fruited and flowered, it's basically lived its cycle. And now at that point you're relying on the pups around it to give you a new mother plant.
So we didn't prepare this in advance, but I'm glad, Kevin, you shared that with our viewers as well when it comes to banana care, that once it produces fruit, the banana plant is pretty much dead. You're relying now on the next generation. Another important lesson some of you have asked is, should I be pruning any leaves? Because when you go through winter and the plant is not growing, even if you're in the warmer climates of Florida, the plant will grow significantly less in winter than it will spring, summer, and fall. That's a fact. So when you've got a parent plant that's got leaves on it, every single green leaf should remain while there's fruit on the plant, as those leaves are working towards creating the sugars as well as the proteins and everything necessary for life, but it's supporting those fruit, every single green leaf. So do not remove any leaves off the parent plant, as it won't produce more leaves while it's fruiting. The important thing I want to share with you also is when pruning leaves, all you need are your simple paper scissors. Check this out differently. But check out, with just your paper scissors, you can cut right through the stems. For things that are a little larger, such as up here, we're just gonna use our handsaw, and that'll cut right through like that. We're gonna do the rest of this on my time so we can continue forward with the rest of the video. So here we are now. We just brought the entire parent plant down to this level. I've cut most of my way into it. And I just simply used my handsaw to make all of these cuts. And here we are. And let's go set this on the side. I'll show you what we're going to do with it momentarily, but look at how many pieces we've got. So this is basically all of the sections of the parent plant and all of the leaves that are behind it. Let me try to show you the remnants of the parent plant from last year. Check this out. So here we are now within the plant, As you can see, we just removed the parent plant. Right here is the trunk of the plant. No need to go any lower. And in fact, it's healthier to keep it above the ground so that it can rot with air being exposed to it rather than it rotting with all of the soil microbes on top of it and potentially contaminating and getting into the root ball or the root crown. We're going to talk about the crown in just a second. But if we pull back, I want to try to show you the remnants of the parent plant, which is right here, and I'm hoping you can catch this on the video, but you can see right here where my hand is, this was the parent that provided us the 60 pounds of ice cream bananas last year, and obviously this is this year. One of you have asked this question. Let me get back in front so I can explain this to you. So one of you have asked a question in the recent weeks about is the banana pups and the suckers, are they invasive? Did they just keep on spreading like some varieties of bamboo where they'll travel several feet or or basically grow outside of that original planting zone? And the answer is yes and no. The no is your banana sucker won't jump several feet away from the parent plant, but what will happen is the crown of the plant will continue to expand. Right here, the crown of my plant, which I planted about 3 years ago now, is at least, I would say, 4 to 5 feet wide. It's that big and growing because where each parent plant is, there's a ring of bananas happening around it. So if this were the parent plant, it's within all of these surrounding pups, and the pups are genetically identical bananas to the original parent plant. So by donating, and I'm going to be giving the majority of my pups away today to growers throughout the Los Angeles area, and we're going to do one of them together momentarily, but the suckers will keep on happening. One issue I've been dealing with here in the garden is I've got this sprinkler that's right here. I'm hoping you can capture it. It's this gray sprinkler right to my left over here. And this sprinkler is only about 1 or 2 inches away from this sucker pup. And here's another pup and another pup and another pup. And there's probably at least 10 to 15 pups surrounding this one parent plant. But if I allow this pup to continue growing and it gets this thick, it's gonna level this sprinkler that's in place. And that happened the year prior. And so what we're gonna do is remove these suckers and push the entire plant back. And we're gonna do that right now. So I'm gonna try to capture a few suckers as there's quite a few of them in such a small area. So let's see if we can do that together. All I'm using right now is my spade shovel. And what I'm gonna do is try to get as close as I can to the sucker. And I'm basically, since the mother plant is done, if there's any reason to spare more of its roots or not to harm it or shock it, then I would be a little more conservative and try to go in the more center part between the pup and the mother plant. But because the mother is gone, I'm actually going to dig a little deeper into the mother plant to try to capture some more roots. The other important lesson I want to share with you before we get started is do not do this during winter, and do not do this method when the parent plant is fruiting. The best time to be doing the separation of the pups from the parent plant is after harvest. So once you remove the fruits, because this process is pretty stressful to the plant. So if you're removing pups while the plant is fruiting, you could compromise the health of the parent plant. You can compromise the quality and the flavor, and the health of your plant ultimately. So the goal is, again, after harvest, then remove the pups. So try to time yourself accordingly, and let's get started. So this here is one of my youngest pups. We'll pull it out now. Now check out all of those roots. So this here is one. We're going to do a few at a time right now. So you'll see over here, we've just removed the first sucker. This is the evidence of the first sucker. We now have these two side suckers that are together. I'm going to try to remove both of them at the same time. So I'm coming in here with the shovel, and we're going to separate accordingly. Here we go. This would be a great gift to one of the homes, that they get these two suckers together. They can pull them apart or decide to grow them together. And I know there's a lot of growers that actually allow 2 to 3 suckers to grow at the same time, you'll end up with 2 to 3 times the harvest. Again, in my garden where I've got limited space and I'm trying to maximize on diversity, I only allow 1 sucker to exist at a time, or 1 parent plant to exist at a time, and I'm managing it accordingly. So I'm going to leave these 2 together, but check out all of these roots. So here we are now. We're just going to take the pup. If you've got some extra towels, I'm just using a towel, but you can do the same thing with paper towels or any way of retaining the moisture. But these are just some extra car wash towels, and we're just going to soak the towel like so, and we're going to store it in a plastic trash bag. And we'll seal it to make sure that moisture is retained, and just store it in a shady place. And we'll be transporting this to the next garden within the hour. Pretty cool stuff. Let's continue. So here's another sucker that I just removed. What we're going to do is, with this one, is we're going to pot it, as this one is going to stay here on my property for a few weeks before I gift this one away as well. I've got here my potting mix. I want you to take a look at it. I made it and prepared it here at home. It's basically a combination of peat moss, and I've got in it some vermiculite and perlite. You can see it better here as I haven't mixed it yet, but you can see over here is the peat moss. The vermiculite is the golden specks, and the perlite are the white specks, 1/3 each. And we're using this as our potting mix. And again, this is ideal, again, specifically for potting mixes and not for your in-ground plantings. So I'm just gonna bring the soil level down to just a few inches in that pot, as I've got a lot of roots to get in. This is not an ideal container. We're just gonna keep it here for a couple of weeks until we get it to the home where it's going to live out its life, and hopefully also propagate and create years and years and years of delicious bananas to that homeowner. I'm making sure I go around. I'm hoping you can see this with my fingers, and I'm basically removing any potential air pockets that may be around it. So I'm now just going with the potting mix and going around, and I'm compacting the soil, not necessarily as tight as I can, but just making sure that all of the roots are in contact with this potting mix that we've just created. We're going to get soil level up to about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch from the surface. That'll allow water, once we water it, to basically pool around it and soak it and work its way down in there. And that's pretty much it. Now for cleanup time. For those of you that talk about pruning, remove any dead leaves from your plant. You can actually remove and shape your plant to just a few leaves initially, but keep in mind, as the plant begins to fruit, you're going to want as many leaves as possible. What we're going to do next is I'm going to cut these leaves in half, and the only reason I'm doing this is to minimize the loss of water from the leaves until the roots get established. So we've shortened the leaves. The leaves that are existing will help sustain the conversion of sunlight into sugars and proteins and all the metabolic processes, but with just a smaller area. And that smaller area will help keep the plant from going into stress. The last thing we're going to do, I've got these 2 products over here. This here is the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard Protection Against Damaging Sunburn, Insects, and Rodents. And the goal is and it's also registered material for use in organic agriculture. This product can be used as a foliar spray, as a brush on, as well as a tree paste. All the directions are here in the back. But what we're going to do today is just use this as a ready-to-use spray. And pretty much the same product, and we're just going to shake it here. And by spraying it onto the plant, and on the leaf surfaces and the undersides of the leaf, what we're doing, and I'm hoping I'll let you zoom in once I finish spraying. What you'll notice, if you come in a little closer, you can take a look at this particular leaf. You can see that the leaves are now coated with what appears to be some very white, light, dilute sunblock, and this is going to help repel that excess sun and minimize the risk of stress from too much sun again. A lot of growers have also had success growing bananas in warmer zones as well as more cooler zones by insulating the plants with this product, the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 ready-to-use spray, as well as the regular canned products as well. Well, let's continue on to the next steps. Last step, don't forget the water. So here we are now, the suckers or the pups. And again, with all the pups that we've removed, those are all genetically identical to the original parent plant. This pup is now this year going to be the parent. This one has inherited, so to speak, the crown, which again is another way to reference the entire root zone where all of these pups are originating. So again, this pup will inherit the crown, become the parent plant that'll then provide us with hopefully another 60 pounds of bananas. And again, with this particular growing zone, we know it's going to take a lot more than 90 days, but I do expect a bloom on this by this year, August, September, and you know, and harvest time for me in this part of Los Angeles with growing on a slope where there's at least 2 months of shade, overcasting my garden in the winter. I'm going to have to wait, as we did this time, between February this year, whereas last year it took us as late as May to enjoy a harvest of bananas. So I'm hoping for those of you that are growing bananas can maybe share in the comments down below what your experiences are and the time it takes for those to mature so other people can get educated on it's not necessarily just 90 days. And maybe other varieties might be shorter or longer, and that's something to consider as well. But take a look at this once sucker that's now going to be the future parent. And then if you want to come in a little closer, we can see who the future pups are going to be. And there's one over here to my just in front of me on my knee, and then there's another one on the other side of the former parent, which is right here, and you can see there's another sucker or two. 1, 2. So there's, depending on whether or not I want the plant to evolve in this direction, I might select one of these pups to inherit the crown, or I might go in this direction and allow this to become the future parent and try to drive the direction of the banana plant in that direction. So there's some control that you have over your banana plants for those of you that are growing banana plants and concerned about how it's going to spread. So again, I'm now working on taking the direction of the plant in this direction, whereas after this one, I might either keep that zone around there or I might drive it back into the original direction, which is right here. This is where the original parent, the first parent plant was. This is now the second, or this year's, and this will be now year 3 for us to enjoy. What I've got here in front of me are some buckets of topsoil I got from various parts of my garden. I don't have my hands on any compost, but what I would do first now is, with all of these empty areas and all these roots that are exposed, I still need to protect the crown, as we're referring to it, and you're going to want to backfill that. So I've got all of this good topsoil, and I'm just backfilling it. What I would do for you other growers that don't have good topsoil in your garden is take some compost and put a nice a few inches of compost in those areas, and then add a layer of wood chips. And I'm going to be doing exactly that, even though I'm just temporarily patching it with some of my own topsoil, because now I got to take care of another section that I've taken this away from. But we're going to basically add some good quality compost on top of it, as well as another 2 to 4 inches of wood chips. And there's one more thing we're going to do in regards to recycling parts, and that's going to be next. Let me just backfill this real quick. And I got another bucket over here to fill in this zone as well. And now follow me. So now all of these parts, which is our parent that provided us all the bananas this year, is all going to get recycled back into the soil. So let's do that together. Follow. And we're just going to keep on repeating the process. So I just got all the banana trunks in place. Now we're going to get some leaves. So I've decided to put the leaves on top of the trunks because the leaves will further insulate and warm up the bottom and further support all of the biology. And the biology consists of slugs and snails, sawbugs, and a whole bunch of critters, including the earthworms from below, will come up and consume all of this organic matter, returning all of the elements that once made this extremely successful banana plant will go right back in the ground and support the next generation. what better fertilizer is there than returning the same plant back into the earth to support the next generation? Pretty cool stuff. One other quick lesson, I've just brought the balance of that parent plant around it, so this is the kind of the finished result. But one tip to be cautious of is to make sure you keep the branches and the trunks at least a couple of inches, 2 to 3 inches away from the future parent plant, as we don't want to avoid the risk of potential stem rot. So if you've got a lot of wood chips and compost and other things coming into too high up the trunk, if you're adding a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, and even up to 1 inch near the crown, that may be okay. But I just want you to be careful not to go up too fast up the tree, as that could contribute towards stem rot. Let me share one other thing with you. Follow me. So check out how many pups we made. I've got 2 pups in containers. I've got all of these here in front of me. I'd say somewhere between 6 to 10 new pups. Again, they're all wrapped in those damp paper towels. They're all tied in with these black trash bags. Something we're going to do throughout all is we're going to shorten the leaves by 50%. Then we're going to go with the Ivory Organics ready to use spray. Spray the entire plant down just to help, again, minimize the loss of water from these plants as they get established in the ground. You can even go with the brush-on solution and coat that onto the trunk of the plant as well to further minimize the loss of moisture as they get established and rooted in the growing zone. Something I know some of you are going to ask with the fact that I had to scale and weighing the bananas to get the exact weight of the bananas. Let's do that now. So here we go. I'm resetting the scale. And here we go. So 200 pounds. So I told you it was 200. I couldn't lie. I got it down to the 0.0. And that's with shoes on, so I don't weigh 200 pounds, right? Anyways, if you found this video informative and educational, give us a thumbs up. And most importantly, by subscribing below, you'll be connected to this and all of our other educational gardening videos. Thanks again for watching, and happy gardening.